In today's society, it's rare and almost impossible to find an adult being a virgin. But what if I told you that there is a woman who has been a virgin and single for 88 years? This woman has never seen the nakedness of a man before. At 88 years old, she realized that no man was born for her yet. She chose to remain pure and single. She has no children and doesn't regret it. In the small, quiet village of Kibo, nestled at the foot of Tanzania's green hills, there lived a remarkable woman named Fatima. She was unlike anyone the village had ever seen. At the age of 88, she carried herself with a quiet dignity. Her back slightly bent from years of hard work, but her spirit unbroken. Her eyes filled with the wisdom of a life lived on her own terms. The villagers often whispered about her, for she was a virgin, untouched by the hands of a man, and childless. In a community where marriage and motherhood were the defining marks of a woman's life, Fatima was an enigma. From a young age, Fatima had decided that no man would be her husband, not because she feared love, but because she believed her true husband had yet to be born. It was a conviction she held onto with unwavering faith, even as she watched her friends marry, have children, and grow old with families of their own. While others succumbed to the pressures of society, Fatima stood firm in her belief that her man would come one day, even if it meant waiting her entire life. As a child, Fatima had been like any other young girl in Kibo. She played under the baobab trees with her siblings and helped her mother prepare food for the family. The women of Kibo taught their daughters early on the ways of running a household. But from the start, Fatima was different. While her friends dreamt of their future husbands, Fatima's dreams were of freedom. She dreamt of a life where she wasn't defined by the expectations of others, where her worth wasn't tied to her ability to bear children. In her 20s, men began to take notice of Fatima's beauty. Her skin was smooth like polished mahogany, her hair a rich, dark mass that she often braided herself. Her smile was a quiet one, and her eyes gleamed with intelligence. Many suitors came, each more determined than the last, but Fatima turned them all away. "I am waiting," she would tell them when they asked why she refused their proposals. "The man meant for me has not been born yet." At first, her family laughed it off. Her father, Hamza, would pat her head and say, "You'll change your mind, Fatima. When the right man comes, you'll know." But as the years passed and Fatima remained unmarried, the laughter turned to concern. Her mother, Aisha, would sit with her by the fire at night, pleading gently, "My daughter, it is time. You are not getting any younger. Who will take care of you when we are gone?" Fatima would only smile and shake her head. "Yamfine, Mama. I have the strength to take care of myself." As she entered her 30s, the pressure from her family and the community became stronger. In Kibo, a woman's value was often measured by the family she built. The elders would whisper, and even her friends began to distance themselves as they became mothers and wives, moving into their own homes, their lives filled with the laughter of children. Fatima, however, remained steadfast in her decision, living in the small house she inherited from her parents after they passed away. Many men still tried to court her, but Fatima had seen the suffering of too many women in the village. She watched as her friend Zara endured years of beatings from her husband, forced to stay because she had nowhere else to go. She saw her cousin Monesha weep quietly each night after her husband took another wife, leaving her in the shadows. Fatima knew she did not want that life. She wanted peace, and so she waited. As the years passed, Fatima became a legend in the village. The young girls looked at her with a mixture of awe and confusion. The elders, though, began to respect her decision. She had lived her life with an independence that few could understand, and while many disagreed with her choices, they couldn't deny the strength it took to stand by them. By the time she turned 60, most people had stopped asking about her marriage prospects. Fatima had made a life for herself. She was a woman of the land, tending to her small farm with the same dedication she had shown in her youth. She grew cassava, maize, and beans, selling her produce at the local market to support herself. Her hands were calloused from years of hard work, but her spirit was as strong as ever. Now, at 88, Fatima's days were filled with routine. She woke early each morning, the sun barely peeking over the hills, and began her day with a prayer of gratitude. "Asante Mungu wangu," she would whisper, her voice barely audible over the rustle of the wind through the trees. "Oh Lord, thank you for this day." After her prayers, she would sweep the floors of her small, modest home, light her cooking fire, and prepare a simple meal. Then she would head out to the fields, her steps slow but determined. The work had become harder as her body aged, but she refused to let anyone help her. Independence was her pride, and she would not surrender it easily. Fatima had no children, but she was not lonely. Her nieces and nephews often visited, bringing their children with them, filling her home with laughter and life. She treated them as her own, but she did not regret her decision not to have children. She found fulfillment in her life in the small things: the sunrise over the hills, the feel of the earth between her fingers, the warmth of the fire at night. The villagers continued to marvel at her, though now their whispers were more of admiration than curiosity. Fatima had lived her life according to her own rules, something that few people in Kibo had managed to do. She had defied the expectations of her society, and in doing so, she had found peace. One day, as she sat by the fire in the evening while making her niece's hair, her niece Rahima asked her, "Aunt Fatima, do you ever wonder if you made the right choice?" Fatima smiled, her eyes crinkling at the corners. "I have no regrets, Rahima. My life has been mine, and that is all I ever wanted."
Rahima nodded, though she didn't fully understand. She had been married for 5 years and had 2 children of her own. Her life was chaotic and full, but she loved it. Yet, there was something about her aunt's quiet solitude that made her wonder. Fatima reached over and took her niece's hand. "You have your path, Rahima, and I have mine. There is no right or wrong choice, only the choice that is right for you. I've watched many women suffer," Fatima continued, her voice soft but steady. "They married men who didn't value them, who saw them as nothing more than servants or childbearers. I refuse to let that be my story." Rahima looked at her aunt with a newfound respect. Fatima had not just survived in a world that tried to shape her into something she didn't want to be. She had thrived. She had cultivated her land, grown her own food, and made a life that was entirely her own. Even without a husband or children, she had found fulfillment in the simple things. "Auntie, do you ever think about what it might have been like if you had a man by your side?" Rahima asked cautiously. Fatima chuckled lightly, the sound almost surprising in the stillness of the night. "I used to. When I was younger, I would sometimes wonder what it would be like to have a man by my side, to raise children, to share my days with someone. But as the years went on, those thoughts faded. I realized that the peace I have now, it's more than many people ever get in this life." Rahima nodded, though she couldn't quite imagine that kind of peace. Her days were filled with the chaos of raising children, managing a household, and keeping her marriage alive. She loved her family dearly, but she often longed for moments of solitude, moments that seemed so abundant in her aunt's life. As the evening stretched on, Rahima and Fatima sat together in comfortable silence, watching the flames dance in the hearth. Fatima's mind wandered back to her younger years, to the days when suitors would come knocking at her door. There was Musa, the baker's son, who had been so kind and gentle, offering her baskets of bread and sweet pastries in the hopes of winning her heart. And there was Juma, the village fisherman, whose hands were always rough from the sea but whose eyes sparkled with humor and life. They were good men, decent men. But Fatima had always known, deep in her heart, that they weren't her man. She had told them so, gently but firmly, as she turned them away. "I am waiting," she would say, though they never understood what she meant. They thought she was waiting for someone richer, more handsome, someone better. But that wasn't it at all. She was waiting for something that went beyond appearances, beyond wealth, beyond what they could offer. She was waiting for a man who had yet to be born, a man who would love her as she deserved to be loved, without expectation or condition. And so, she waited. The years passed, and the men stopped coming. The whispers in the village grew louder. People began to wonder if Fatima was cursed, if there was something wrong with her. Why would a beautiful woman like her remain single for so long? They would say. But Fatima never paid them any mind. She knew her truth, and that was enough for her. Now, at 88, those whispers had long since faded. People in the village had come to accept Fatima as she was. A woman of quiet strength, a woman who had made her own way in the world. She was respected, even if she was not fully understood. And in the moments of stillness, when she was alone with her thoughts, Fatima felt a deep sense of peace. The next morning, as the sun began to rise over the hills of Kibo, Fatima woke as she always did, with a prayer of gratitude on her lips. She moved slowly but deliberately through her morning routine, sweeping the floors, lighting the fire, and preparing her simple meal of porridge and tea. The house was quiet, but it wasn't lonely. Fatima had made her peace with solitude long ago. As she ate her breakfast, her thoughts drifted to the village, to the people who had passed through her life. Some were still here, like Rahima, with their bustling families and busy lives. Others had left, either by death or by moving on to bigger cities in search of more prosperous futures. Fatima had stayed, rooted in the land of her ancestors, content with the life she had built. Later that day, Fatima walked to the market, her cane tapping rhythmically against the dirt road. The market was alive with the sounds of children playing, women haggling over prices, and men carrying goods to and from the stalls. Fatima smiled as she passed by. Greeting people she had known for years, she walked. She overheard snippets of conversation about her. "There she is, the woman who never married," someone whispered. "Can you imagine? A virgin at her age," another added. Fatima's smile didn't get angry. She had heard it all before. The gossip didn't bother her anymore. In fact, it amused her. People were so concerned with her life, as if her choices somehow affected theirs. But Fatima knew better. Her life was her own, and that was all that mattered. By the time she returned home, the sun was beginning to set, casting a warm golden glow over the village. Fatima sat on her porch, watching as the sky turned shades of orange and pink. She thought about the life she had lived, the decisions she had made. There were no regrets. She had chosen her path, and she had walked it with her head held high. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an exciting new story. Your support means a lot, and I look forward to sharing more captivating tales with you. See you in the next video.